Hey everybody, it's Joan coming to you live from Joan's Kitchen, and today we are going to be making a Mexican shrimp cocktail. Shrimp cocktails, the way that we know them in the States, are a delicious and easy and nice, cool thing to have for a summertime. Traditionally, here in the States, they're made with big, beautiful shrimp that are left whole. The shrimp are deveined, so the line of sand that goes down the middle of their back has been removed, and they've been cooked until just perfectly done and then chilled down. They're typically served on a bed of ice, and a cocktail sauce is typically something that's a tomato sauce, maybe with some horseradish and some other seasoning put in, and there may be some lemon wedges on the side. There's variations. In New Orleans, they make a remoulade sauce, which is kind of a mayonnaise with chopped up vegetables, including celery, put in it. But that's kind of the traditional way that we have a shrimp cocktail here in the U.S. The shrimp cocktail that I'm making today is a Mexican shrimp cocktail, and I honestly don't think that it really started in Mexico. I think it's more an adaptation by Mexican cooks who were using ingredients that we have available to us here in the U.S. I have learned this recipe from my sister Paula. Paula at one time owned a restaurant and bakery in Park City, Utah, right on Main Street that was called the Morning Ray. And this is a recipe that she learned from one of the ladies who worked with her. So in my family, this shrimp cocktail, which really is a Mexican shrimp cocktail, is called shrimp cocktail a la Jenny. So if you ever go to a Mexican restaurant here in the States and you see a shrimp cocktail on the menu, what you're going to get is probably something very similar to what I am going to be preparing today. And once again, like some of the recipes that we've made previously, the ingredients are pretty easy to find, and I'll go over that with you. And these are all, for the most part, American ingredients, and you might be a little bit surprised at what actually goes into this. And there's not a lot of extra seasoning, and as I go through, I will explain why. So we start out with frozen cooked shrimp, and these are actually the baby shrimp or the cocktail shrimp or salad shrimp. So these are not the big shrimp that you would have in a traditional American shrimp cocktail. And I've got these defrosted already so you can see. They're very tiny. These are the kind of shrimp that somebody might make a shrimp salad out of if it was going to be put on a sandwich, because this would just be easier to make into a salad. I mean, look at the size of the pieces. It's like comparable to how you would chop up chicken or eggs for a chicken or an egg salad or a tuna salad for that matter. So you buy these already frozen, and all you have to do is defrost them. They're already cooked and they're already clean, so it's a very simple ingredient that we're going to be using today. We also are going to be using V8 juice. So V8 juice is a tomato juice that's fortified with different kinds of vegetables. I've already measured out the portion that I need. I happen to use the one with less salt. Again, I don't like to have any additional salt in the food that I'm preparing if I don't need to. This dish is not spicy. There is a spicy variety of V8, so if you want a little extra kick in the dish, you could certainly do that. This dish also has ketchup, just regular old, good old American ketchup, and it's actually going to have this whole 14-ounce bottle. There is diced onion. I think probably most of the time the onion that's used in this is a white onion. I like to make it with a red onion. I like the way it tastes a little bit better, and I also like it for the visual appeal because the dish is going to be served in glass, so you see through it. It makes it just a little bit prettier. We're going to have the juice of a couple of limes. We're going to have a couple of avocados chopped up, and we're going to have 6 tomatoes. I use the plum tomatoes. The reason that I use the plum tomatoes is that they're generally available all year round, and they actually taste pretty good regardless of what the season is, unlike other kinds of tomatoes that sometimes don't taste very good. And I find that using 6 of these is a good proportion rather than using 6 of the bigger round tomatoes that we're used to. And then the avocado I mentioned already. Then one of the garnishes that traditionally goes into this is cilantro, and I have some cilantro here. Cilantro kind of looks like Italian flat leaf parsley. It has a very, very distinct taste. It's not a flavor that I particularly care for, so I'm not going to be adding it into my shrimp cocktail. When I made this, since I don't care for cilantro and some of my kids don't either, I will have this chopped up on the side. Cilantro is one of those flavors that you either like or you hate, and there's really no in between. And there have even been studies suggesting that your reaction to this particular herb is actually a genetic component of our makeup. So for whatever reason, I just can't stand it, so I don't put it in food. It's actually really funny, if there's food that's been prepared that has cilantro in it, even like the little tiniest leaf, the flavor just explodes in my mouth. And it's just, for me, it's not a pleasant sensation. And then the final thing that we need is the restaurant-style tortilla chips, just like we used a few weeks ago when we made chilaquiles together. These are made from real corn tortillas that have been cut up and deep fried. And they're not actually going to go into the recipe, but this is what we're going to be eating this with, because this shrimp cocktail is served almost like a dip. Again, this would typically be an appetizer. You could certainly have this as part of a meal, you know, maybe with some cornbread or a salad or something, because there's a lot of protein from the shrimp, so that would certainly make a filling meal. I have taken the liberty of pretty much preparing everything in advance. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it together. I do have my V8 juice that has been measured out. And I'm going to open up my ketchup and just dump that in there. I already had squeezed the juice from 2 limes, and the juice from the 2 limes is actually in the bottom of this bowl that I'm putting the other ingredients in. And I've got my tomato and my avocado and my onion all chopped up. So actually, since I did all the chopping in advance, this is going to go together pretty quickly. I'm just going to grab a spatula here. So I have my red onions that are chopped up. They're actually diced pretty fine. And again, if you think about this, rather than the big shrimp like we would use in a traditional American shrimp cocktail, these are little shrimp, and we're going to be using this as a dip. So you want to have something that's going to be small enough that you can actually pick it up with a tortilla chip like this. So all of the vegetables are chopped pretty fine, and I showed you the shrimp, which is also just little teeny tiny shrimp. So I have here my chopped avocado and my 6 chopped tomatoes. There's a little liquid coming out of there, and that's liquid coming from the tomatoes that have been sitting in the bowl for a few minutes after I chopped them. So I'm just going to give this all kind of a good stir here. And the very last thing that is going to go into this is the cocktail shrimp. Looking at this, at the proportions here, I probably would actually add a little bit more avocado, because I like avocado, and when it's chopped up so small, it seems like it's a little bit overwhelmed by the tomatoes. This is one of those recipes that you could easily vary according to whatever your taste is. So the last thing I'm going to put in here are the shrimp. The shrimp came frozen. They thaw very quickly. I just set them out in some water and then rinsed them out in a colander. They are very mild tasting. They don't have any kind of a fishy flavor at all. And this is all going to get mixed together. If you order this in a Mexican restaurant, chances are it's going to be served to you in an ice cream dish. When I make this at home for a family, or if I'm making this for a party, I will usually serve it in a big dish like this with a big bowl of chips on the side, so people can kind of just dip into it as they see fit. My understanding is now, in the wake of the virus that's been going around, a lot of Mexican restaurants are not recommending that people sitting at the same table share chips and dips out of the same bowl. So they're serving individual portions, and that's actually what we're going to do with this. So the typical way to serve this in a Mexican restaurant is actually served in what we would consider an ice cream sundae glass. So I'm going to put some of that in here so you can see how this would look. And this is a way for you to portion it, you know, in individual portions, so people aren't dipping into the same thing if you're worried about any kind of cross-contamination. And you could easily garnish it like that by putting a chip inside. We also have these big water glasses that we got. They're just cut glass, you know, just simple things like from Target or something. That certainly is another option to portion this out in a glass like that. And these are actually pretty healthy helpings. This is a very filling appetizer. So, you know, again, typically in a Mexican restaurant, you would have a serving like this. This would probably be enough for 2 people. I mean, think about it. When you go to a Mexican restaurant, you have the guacamole. When you order it, it usually comes really small, you know, maybe about the size of a tennis ball, or if you're lucky, the size of a baseball. This is comparable to that. I mentioned that there's not any special seasoning. This flavor in this is coming from the combination of the onions, the lime juice. I guess the lime juice is a seasoning. The vegetables that are in the V8 juice, and whatever's in the ketchup, which probably has a little bit of sugar. So there we have it, our Mexican shrimp cocktail. In Spanish, it would be cocktail, C-O-C-T-E-L, de camarones, so they would call it a cocktail of shrimp. And it's very easy to put together, very nice cooling dish for the summertime, very tasty. I think you and your friends will really love it, and I really do hope that you try it. And again, as I mentioned, these are all ingredients that are very easy to get a hold of here in the States. One last word. If you are not able to find the baby cocktail shrimp, You could get regular shrimp. It's easier if you get them pre-cooked and just let them thaw and chop them up into little bits. That works just fine as well. I actually looked for the cocktail shrimp in a couple of conventional grocery stores without success this past week when I was shopping for this. We do have a supermarket here that's kind of a hybrid between a Costco and a supermarket. It sells to the restaurant trade, so that's where I found that ginormous 2-pound bag of the cocktail shrimp. But if you can't find that, no worries. Just go ahead and get some regular shrimp and cut it up. And having said that, there's no reason that you couldn't substitute other seafood for this. You could definitely put in crab instead, or you could get scallops and cut that up, or you could even do a mixture. If you had a nice mild fish, you could chop that up, so you could really even make it into kind of a seafood salad, not just a shrimp cocktail, if that was something that you were interested in doing. So if you have questions, please put the questions in the comments. And if you would like to get a copy of the recipe, I'm going to put a link in the comments for this video. And I would ask that you subscribe to my newsletter. I'm posting the videos in my newsletter every week, along with the recipe for what I made the week before. And I also have fun tips and interesting tips about travel, which we can't do so much of right now, and food. I'm hoping to keep the inspiration going for those days that are sure to come when we will be able to get out into the world again. I hope you've enjoyed this demo today, and until next week, that's it for today from Joan's Kitchen. Adios.